Okay, good evening, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay with this mic? Okay, terrific. Welcome. We're really glad that you're here. This is the second public hearing that Williamson County is putting on related to the county's proposed planned growth areas and rural areas as they relate to an amendment to the overall Williamson County growth plan. And I'll explain kind of what that is all about. So the way we're going to operate tonight is that I'm going to give a brief presentation that I hope that you'll find informative. I hope you'll learn a little bit. And then we're going to have a public hearing, and we'd love to hear thoughts and comments that you all have. We do have a sign-in sheet over here. If you plan on speaking at the public hearing, we'd love for you between now and then, while I'm speaking, maybe come up and sign in, because we'd love to have an accurate history and record of who speaks. Okay, so the focus, as I mentioned, of this public hearing is on what Williamson County is proposing for our rural areas and our planned growth areas. There have been, and maybe are continuing, other public hearings that some of the municipalities have been putting on related to what they're proposing. And we'll talk a little bit about the process that has been unfolding and that will unfold going forward. Okay, so real quickly, some of you know this, some of you may not, but the Williamson County Growth Plan is a county-wide plan. That's the plan. It was adopted in 2001, and that's the plan that establishes the urban growth boundaries that are surrounding the municipalities. All right, so those are areas where the cities have identified as future municipal. So they said someday, within 20 years, let's say, they envision those areas as being part of their cities. And so those are the urban growth boundaries. The rest of the county, primarily outside the city limits and outside the urban growth boundaries, are rural areas. And there are some exceptions to that, and those exceptions are referred to as planned growth areas. So there's three different designations. There's the urban growth boundaries around the cities, there's the rural areas in the outlying areas of the county, and then there have always been certain planned growth areas, and those include areas like the Triune community and portions of Grassland. Those are areas where the county said, you know what, there are certain areas that should and can experience some additional development than just the remainder of the rural areas. So that's a little bit about the plan itself. This was a plan that was mandated by the state legislature, and as I said, was adopted in 2001. And this is the plan. This is the official Williamson County growth plan that was adopted in 2001, that was recorded here at the county and that the state of Tennessee recognized. It hasn't been changed since 2001. And so to orient you, the different colors, as I'm sure you have noticed by now, represent the different municipalities. There are 6 of them in Williamson County: Franklin, Brentwood, Thompson Station, Spring Hill, Nolensville, and Fairview. So those are shown on the map in the lighter version of those colors, the more central areas. Those lighter versions in the center represented the city limits of those municipalities as they existed back in 2001. And then the darker shade of the same color are those urban growth boundaries that were established in 2001 and have remained the same. So the corporate limits have expanded somewhat through annexations, but the urban growth boundaries have remained the same since that time. I'll also point out to you, and it's hard to see, but I'll show you a much better map in a few minutes, that the planned growth areas in the county are shown on this map. One out 840 toward the eastern part of the county. You may be able to see it says PGA 5, and then kind of north central, just to the west of Brentwood in the Grassland area, are some planned growth areas that were established back then as well. Okay, so why are we updating the growth plan? You know, besides the obvious fact that it's 20 years old and needs to be updated. Well, Williamson County fairly recently, within the last few years, adopted a new comprehensive land use plan for the unincorporated portions of Williamson County. And there were two main aspects of that plan. One was to help preserve rural character in the outlying areas, which we heard were, you know, something that the community really valued. And in order to do that, the idea is to focus the majority of the growth in the cities, thereby lessening the development pressure in the rural areas, and being able to preserve this asset that people, you know, find very valuable. And we did that. And so you may be aware that a lot of the unincorporated county was actually rezoned to only allow 1 unit per 5 acres as a tool to help achieve the vision of preserving rural character. The other main idea in the comprehensive plan was that the county and each jurisdiction should work together on regional growth issues. And so it was suggested in that plan that we revisit these boundaries because they are 20 years old and it all kind of needs to work together. And when we reached out to the cities, you know, to a jurisdiction, they said, hey, you know what? Our current growth boundaries no longer really align to where we're headed as a community and where we can provide infrastructure. And so the decision was made to revisit these boundaries. So each jurisdiction has been evaluating where future growth should occur based upon things like population projections, where available land is, and then, you know, one of the key factors has been, you know, where infrastructure can be provided in a fiscally responsible way. So we're updating the boundaries that we showed you on that first map, but we also don't want to stop there this time. We don't want to have a growth plan that's just a map with lines drawn showing boundaries. We want to supplement those boundaries with some goals and strategies that help make the plan you know, come into fruition. We feel like that's needed in order to make the overall system of urban growth boundaries, rural areas, and PGAs work as effectively and efficiently as possible. So that's what we're working on. This is that updated view of that map I showed you initially, just with better colors and more clarity. On this map, we're not showing the urban growth boundaries, again, because this particular public hearing is focused on what the county is proposing in terms of rural areas and planned growth areas. So to orient you, the dark gray represents the corporate limits as they exist now of the 6 different municipalities. And I guess it's an orange or peach shade represents the current planned growth areas that were adopted in 2001. So you've got the area I mentioned in Triune in the eastern portion of the county, and then you've got a fairly large area up in the grassland area that was and has been designated as a planned growth area. Okay, so I mentioned that still very recently we adopted a new comprehensive land use plan, which is the overall policy document for Williamson County, unincorporated Williamson County, when it comes to growth and development issues. And so we want to make sure that what we're proposing for our planned growth areas and rural areas is aligned with our comprehensive plan. And that's what we've done here. So in this map, you see the same corporate limits boundaries. I'm not sure why it's a different shade, but it's a darker shade of orange. That's what we're proposing for our planned growth areas. This is what's existing, and this what is proposed. So you can see that the land area that is proposed to be within planned growth areas is significantly smaller, again, based upon the recommendations of our comprehensive plan. So I'll go through these in a bit more detail, but you can see Triune is represented there, College Grove is represented there, Grassland is represented there. Leapers Fork is represented. Those 4 areas, the county has done what we call special area plans for those communities, where we worked with the community to identify a vision for the future. And then we followed up that plan with creating tailored zoning district standards so that when property does develop in those areas, it's consistent with the vision that the community had. So it just makes sense that those 4 areas be planned growth areas, because we've got those adopted plans. We've got zoning that does call for some additional development beyond what you see in those white rural areas. In addition to that, we've proposed 2 new PGAs, and those are what are referred to as the Arrington Hamlet area and the Rudderville Hamlet area, which is down near Page High School. And I'll go through each of these in a little more specificity. This is the College Grove proposed PGA. The red line is the proposed boundary for the PGA, and it exactly matches the boundary of the College Grove Village zoning district. Okay, so really this is just a reflection of the fact that we've got a plan specific to this area. We've got customized zoning in place, and so it makes sense to put this in as a planned growth area. Same thing with Grassland. The boundary here exactly matches the boundary of the Grassland Special Area Plan and the zoning districts that we created for that village area. Same thing in Leapers Fork. It exactly replicates the zoning district boundary there. And then in Triune, you may have noticed that the Triune boundary of the PGA is smaller now than it, or at least that's what we're proposing, than it has been. When we did the Triune Special Area Plan, there were different recommendations for different parts of that area. And so what we're showing here is the PGA coincides with the zoning district boundaries in Triune, where additional development, more than just 1 unit per 5 acres, is permitted and encouraged. Okay? And then this is the boundary proposed right now of the Arrington planned growth area. It matches the Hamlet zoning district that is in place out there. And same with Rudderville near Page High School, corresponds with the Hamlet zoning in that area. Okay, so that concludes, what we're proposing as unincorporated Williamson County to the coordinating committee that is kind of overseeing this. And I'll go through the process a bit more. But I did want to include in the presentation a little broader view that shows not only the county's PGAs and rural areas, but the urban growth boundaries for the cities. So this map here shows the existing system out there. So you see the cities, and this time it's a darker version of their respective colors, and then the urban growth boundaries are the lighter version that surround them. You see the county's PGAs in that peach shade. This is the current view from an overall county perspective. And then this is a cumulative map that shows what the county and what the cities are proposing at this stage of the game. At the stage of the game where we're holding these initial public hearings. This isn't the easiest scale to see things at, but sorry about that. So I'll toggle back and forth just a little bit, and you can kind of focus your eyes on the area you're most interested in. This is the existing proposal. These are the proposed boundaries. I'm sure many of you have seen a variation of this. Okay? So as I mentioned earlier, this time around, we don't think it's sufficient just to have lines on a map. Those are obviously very, very important. But we want to make sure that we establish a set of goals and policies and strategies that can help make things work most effectively and help us as an overall region manage growth as responsibly as we can. And so we are proposing a set of goals and strategies that we're presenting to you all tonight, and we'll be presenting for feedback in the future. The first one is simply kind of what I said this is all about, is to ensure that that overall system of UGBs, planned growth areas, and rural areas function as effectively and as optimally as we can. And there are several strategies that we've identified. The first of which is that once the plan gets adopted, the county should work with each of the 6 municipalities on interim development policies. So in other words, what happens in these urban growth boundaries between the time that they're established or modified and when they're annexed? Because until they're annexed, it still falls within the county's jurisdiction from a zoning standpoint and a development review standpoint. So we need to be sure that our policies help to facilitate what we want to happen at the end of the day. So we'd be looking at things like what's the zoning that's appropriate in those, certainly at least in those new areas of UGB, in those interim times. Also, whether or not, or the extent to which non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal systems are used. These are systems that we've seen in the county that unlike a traditional sewer system where the treated clean wastewater is discharged into a water body. In this case, the clean water is disposed into the soil. And right now we don't allow those in the urban growth boundaries, but we want to at least revisit that to see if some change in that might be helpful to the overall effort. And then we plan on using intergovernmental agreements to address specific opportunities or challenges as they come up. Another strategy that we've identified is, if we get all 7 jurisdictions on the same page on this growth plan, then maybe there's strength in numbers. Maybe we can collectively as a community lobby the state legislature to maybe make some changes in annexation authority, maybe carving out something specific to Williamson County that can help make the system work better. Sometimes it's a hindrance the way it is right now. And then the third strategy under this first goal is that the municipalities shouldn't annex outside the growth boundaries. If we're going to all the trouble of establishing boundaries based on all this thorough analysis, there should be a commitment that the cities won't annex outside those growth boundaries. This particular strategy, it is actually being worked on now, and the hope is that when the plan itself goes forward for adoption, that an interlocal agreement related to this particular strategy would already be in place. And I think that's a good move, and I think that's good for the county residents. It gives people some certainty of what to expect. All right, the second goal is that this process of working together with all the jurisdictions should continue, after this planning process is over. And so we want to also commit that we will revisit this growth plan at least every 5 years. I mean, maybe we do it sooner if there's a particular thing that necessitates it, but at least every 5 years. There's no reason that something like this should sit on the shelf for a long time. This strategy is also being worked on by the attorneys at this point, and the idea here again is that this commitment will be in the form of an interlocal agreement by the time the plan is done. And I think that also is going to be helpful to citizens to know that, hey, if let's say you want to be in a growth boundary, but you're not yet, that hey, things aren't going to be in stone. Things evolve, and we need to be revisiting these policies on a somewhat regular basis. And then finally, under this strategy, we feel like that there should be the formation of a group, an advisory group of some sort with representatives from all of the jurisdictions, where we don't wait even that 5 years to get together to talk about important regional planning issues, that maybe we meet quarterly to talk about things that are important, whether that's transportation planning or what have you. So that's an important part of this. as is, and that's yet another strategy that is being kind of memorialized with an interlocal agreement. And then finally, I know Mayor Anderson is real interested in developing some sort of a transportation entity that is focused just on Williamson County that can help with traffic and roadway improvements and that sort of thing. Okay, shifting gears real quickly as I wrap up to the process. I mentioned there's a coordinating committee that is working with us on this, or really kind of working on this, I should say. The state statute establishes that there has to be a coordinating committee. This is the general makeup that is prescribed by that statute. So each jurisdiction has representation. Usually it's going to be their mayors, and in this case, it's the mayors of the different communities. I won't go through all these, but you can see that the chamber is represented, the school system's represented, the utilities are represented, and so forth. So there's a committee that has been formed that you'll hear a little bit more about as I go forward. Okay, so from a process standpoint, we are right now in the red font. Okay, so the committee's been formed. The committee has met one time to kind of get itself established, and now we're in the process of holding public hearings. Each of the 7 jurisdictions, the county and the 6 municipalities, are required by statute to hold 2 public hearings. So this is the second public hearing that the county is holding, related really just to what I said, our proposed PGAs in rural areas. The cities have been holding public hearings on their proposed urban growth boundaries. I know some of you have attended some of those. So following these public hearings, we'll go back and we'll take stock of what comments we heard and sift through those and determine what, if any, changes we think should be made to our proposal based on the public feedback. And then the coordinating committee is going to have a meeting or multiple meetings if necessary, where each jurisdiction presents their recommendation. Okay, so the coordinating committee is going to hear 7 different presentations of what is being recommended by those jurisdictions in terms of their either growth boundaries or, in our case, planned growth areas and rural areas. And then at that point, the coordinating committee would discuss and eventually put that in the form of a draft revised growth plan, kind of amalgamation of the various communities. Then the coordinating committee is going to hold 2 public hearings, okay? And so this is not, and the public hearings that you may have attended at the municipality level are not your only bite at the apple. You'll get multiple opportunities to express your thoughts. The coordinating committee will hold 2 public hearings themselves. We're thinking those will likely take place in October. Those will be publicized. And then that process is going to be very similar to this, where the coordinating committee will sift through the comments that they hear and discuss whether they should make changes to the draft plan based upon the comments that they hear. And then at some point, we're thinking October perhaps, the coordinating committee would approve a recommended plan and then send that recommended plan to each of the 7 jurisdictions for approval by the legislative bodies. Okay, so that would be another opportunity to speak. We're hoping that when we get to that point, you know, the jurisdictions would make some changes if they feel necessary based on the public comment. The coordinating committee would hear public comment and potentially make changes, and then the legislative bodies would ultimately need to approve it. And then once that's done, if that's done, then it goes to the state for ratification. Okay, so that's an overview, and thanks for indulging me in that. What we'll do now is turn it over for a public hearing. Some of you came in after I said this, but we would love, if you want to speak this evening, we'd love for you to sign in, and that way we have an accurate record of who spoke, and we can put that in the file. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to public comment. What we'd like to do is listen to you individually, back to back. Some of us will be taking notes. And then after the people who want to speak have spoken, then I think we would probably want to come back up and try to, either answer questions or address some of the things that we heard. So with that, if you would come up individually, I'll move out of the way. And if you'll just come to the microphone, and it'd be great if you could state your name, and you don't have to give your address in this format, but at least maybe what part of the county you live in, and then we'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks. Sure. No. So the question was, I'm repeating this because this is being filmed and they won't pick up what you say. The question was whether there would be a transcript of the public hearings from other jurisdictions. And I can't speak to whether what kind of minutes they've generated. I don't expect that we will see that, because right now our role as county people is to present this at this point. We will provide minutes, and we'll post those on our website. And in fact, this public hearing, the video of that will be posted on our website. Okay.
Hi, my name is Dana Frick. I live in Franklin, but in unincorporated Williamson County, which is why we're coming here to speak. We're in an area where Franklin's urban growth boundary comes down to West Harpeth Road. Thompson Station's proposed urban growth boundary comes up to West Harpeth Road. And as the decisions where they stand right now, we'd like to make sure everyone is aware and take a moment to pause and say, is this appropriate? Because if Franklin releases some of this area out of their urban growth boundaries and Thompson Station is allowed to cherry pick just the area that's not been developed yet, that leaves some donut holes of the areas that, they're not appropriate to put sewage in because the homes aren't tapped for sewage, so Thompson Station doesn't want it. Well, then part of the growth planning process, you're supposed to have continuous boundaries. It's real clear. You're either in or you're out. And that approach right now. So we're making sure we've been to Franklin and spoke to them. We've been to Thompson Station and spoke. I don't know if they heard, but we spoke. But so there's a lot of problems, as we know. And one of them we talked about is donut holes and having continuous boundaries. One is the infrastructure problems. So we have schools at capacity. We have construction pollution in the creeks and in the pond at South Point. We have flash flooding along West Harpeth Road. And the one that's just a lawsuit waiting to happen is turning left onto Columbia Pike. There's a poor man there. His brick mailbox has been taken out 4 times in accidents by people trying to turn left. Right now, between the railroad tracks and Columbia Pike, there's 105 homes. They're all zoned MGA, 1 home, 1 acre, but there's 105. Thompson Station has upzoned 2 areas for development, Thomas Downs and Station Hill. That's over 300 homes, 300 cars, 600 cars, realistically, or more, traffic coming down West Harpeth. It's just only going to happen more often, trying to turn left to go north to Franklin. So this infrastructure is going to cost a lot to fix. It's Thompson Station that's driving the high-density development, and it's the Williamson County residents that are having to pay for it. All Thompson Station has is sewage connection. They don't have fire. They don't do roads. They don't do police. They don't do anything but sewage, which we don't need. So we ask that if our homes along West Harpeth can't be included in the Franklin urban growth boundary, which would offer some services to us, that Williamson County look at the interlocal agreement as a tool to be able to say, if you have the MGA now, municipal growth area zoning of 1 home per 1 acre now, in that interlocal agreement, please respect that going forward to give us some kind of protection. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Good evening. I stand before you today as a homeowner and a concerned member of the Harpeth Woods subdivision. Our neighborhood is not just a collection of homes. It's a tight-knit community that we have nurtured over the years. We've created a haven where families thrive, children play, and neighbors look out for one another. It's a place that we call home, and we want to ensure its unique character and tranquility remain intact for generations to come. As you may be aware, despite our unanimous opposition, including notarized signatures registered with the county, Thompson Station has ignored our requests to be removed from the urban growth boundary. And now we find ourselves facing the possibility of our beloved Harpeth Woods being included within it. While we understand the importance of progress and growth, we also believe in preserving the essence of what makes our neighborhood special, and many of yours as well. Our streets are lined with trees that have witnessed the passage of time. Our homes reflect our heritage in the region. We cherish the safety, the peace, and quiet that our community provides, and we believe these qualities are integral for our well-being. As the population around us grows and urban areas expand, it's essential to safeguard pockets of serenity like Harpeth Woods and many other neighborhoods in the area. I humbly request the esteemed members of Williamson County consider our plea. We believe that our community can contribute positively to the area's growth without losing its identity. Preserving Harpeth Woods as it is will allow us to maintain a balance between development and the preservation of our history. We're not opposed to progress, but we do hope for a balance that respects the needs and aspirations of current residents. We propose that alternative options be explored that can accommodate growth while respecting the character and the quality of life that our neighborhood provides. And we understand there are challenges and complexities involved in these decisions, and we appreciate your commitment to the betterment of our community. Please help us find a solution that ensures the best possible outcome. Nobody in our subdivision wants to be a part of the urban growth plan. All 40 residents have signed letters in the past, and they fell on deaf ears. That has to mean something when the residents themselves are requesting something they don't want. We all have septic. We do not need sewer, and moving us under Thompson Station would actually decrease the quality of life for everybody in the subdivision and the people around us. Thank you very much. My name is Adam Melcher, 4139 Jensen.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Sharp. I live right across from South Point, where Dana mentioned. I'm representing 17 homes in a subdivision called Laurel Hill. We just right off West Harpeth and Columbia Avenue. My house is unfortunately positioned right. My backyard looks right on Columbia Avenue. I'd invite you over for a beer or coffee, but you wouldn't be able to hear me speak because the traffic's so loud. So, and the gentleman that Dana mentioned, his mailbox getting knocked over 5 times. I was there one time, helped that man out of his car when he was hit into the mailbox because the traffic is already so bad. So, and I usually like to take, when I come this way to work downtown Franklin, I usually tend to take Carter's Creek because I enjoy the drive. It's just such a beautiful and an amazing drive. And I understand that farming is getting to become a lost art here in this county because if you're sitting on 15 to 30 million dollars, why would you want to do that when you can change a generation for three generations? But I'm here as a concerned citizen. My daughter's back here with me. She goes to Winstead Elementary. I also have concerns about the rezoning of schools. She's been in Winstead Elementary for 6 years. Going into middle school, if she's rezoned, she would lose that connection with all those friends that she goes to, that she's zoned for legacy. So, those are some other things that we're not thinking about as well, that we need to make sure that the county hears us. And I understand that there's commissioners that support this, but this land grab by Thompson Station is not right. We want the same. We want to keep the rural character that we have and keep it as a cohesive environment to just preserve that beauty. And I was at the city meeting last week and spoke about this, and the city deferred their meeting on voting. But Eric Stuckey, the city commissioner, mentioned multiple times that the owner wished to be removed from that. The owner is A1 Building Group. So yeah, they want to be removed. They don't care. It's all about the dollar for them. And I don't want 300 homes going back there. It's just not right. And so I hope there's a plan. I mean, I'm pretty sure Tom Station doesn't have a plan for traffic. They haven't even considered that, I'm sure. There needs to be a stoplight already at West Harpeth and Columbia Avenue. So thank you very much. Tony Sharp, West Harpeth and Columbia Laurel Hill subdivision.
Good evening. I'm Max Curry. I am a resident in the Harpeth Woods neighborhood. We bought our home 20 years and 1 month ago, and we have lived there this entire time being residents of the Williamson County community. A year and a half ago, we started construction on a new house in downtown Franklin. We just listed our house 2 weeks ago. Our neighbors next door to us sold their home directly next door on a lot very similarly sized to ours, just shy of 2 acres, a house size very similar to ours. Our house is much, much nicer with many more amenities. They sold that house for $1.25 million, 4 times what we paid for it. We've listed our house for just a little bit more than that. I absolutely believe, the house has been listed privately for 2 weeks, and we have 2 individual couples that have expressed interest from out of state in the house, and they specifically told our real estate agent that they're only interested in homes that have a Franklin address. So we've already had to disclose to them that these meetings are happening and that our home could be moved out of Franklin and into Thompson Station. I absolutely believe there is proof of negligence, of negligible damage that could be, and the harm that could be inflicted on us in an active sale environment right now. If our home was outside of Franklin and in Thompson Station, as they're proposing, these people would not be interested in our home. We wouldn't even have them as considered buyers at this point. But we have an established valuation that was less than a year ago, directly next door to a very similarly situated house that's for the market now. And I believe if we see a vast diminishment of the value of our house for what it sells for, it's because of this. This has the potential to harm all of our home values that are in these areas that are being proposed to move into Thompson Station. Yes, it may still be Williamson County, but there is a value to having a Franklin address. There is. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it is a fact. It has a value. These people, one of the couples out of Chicago, did their research and said, moving to this area, this is the only place they're willing to consider, Franklin. They found this on the internet and with their realtor. That says something. Our remaining in Franklin has a value. And our neighborhood, all 40 homes have indicated we have no interest in being relocated out of Franklin and into Thompson Station. There is no gain for us. As Adam said, all they're going to offer us is sewer. We already have functional septic systems. We don't need their sewer, but we get lots of other services from being a part of Franklin, and we're going to lose all of that. Our value will go down, not up. And clearly the value of our homes will go down and not up. And I don't know what the taxation part of this will be, but I think that's is a point that is negligible, that the true value could be a 10, 15, or 20% diminishment in the value of our homes being moved. And we've made a significant contribution to this community being here for 20 years, and to suddenly get sucker punched here at the end would be wrong. And it would be wrong for our neighbors that we love and that we've developed this beautiful community that we're leaving behind, and we hope to come back and visit, but we want to see it be the same place that we're leaving to go back and visit. Thank you. My name is Max Curry. I live at 4208 Pete's Place in Harpeth Woods in Franklin. And I wanted to stay in Franklin.
Hi, good evening. My name's Andrew Kelly. I am at 1305 Erin Lane and over in the West Harpeth area in Laurel Hill development as well. And so speaking on behalf of West Harpeth area, just been to a few meetings here already, one with Thompson Station, one with the Planning Committee of Franklin. And so some information that I found out was in the West Harpeth area down where we are, 9 properties are being looked at, have been brought to the UGB to be switched over. 9 of those properties, 7 of the 9 are owned by A1 developers. So as was said earlier, is A1 came in front of the OMA here in Franklin, and they were denied sewer accessibility. So what they did is they turned around and went to Thompson Station, and they put in for the request of being annexed over, or part of the UGB there. So basically, there's A1 already has a development down West Harpeth Road. I believe it's roughly 30 some odd homes, and the zoning is the MGA, so therefore 1 home, 1 acre. And looking into this further with Thompson Station's history, is other developers have gone in front of them. Their zoning's a little different, so like T1, T2. So basically, again, 1 home per acre, maybe 1 home per 2 acres in Thompson Station. But the developers, the information I've found, the developers have gone in front of their planning board and had it switched over to D2s and D3s. So Thompson Station Planning Board has basically said, hey, yeah, come in town and and we'll approve you for the more homes per acre. So what we're seeing down our way in West Harpeth is A1 is one of those that's could be switching over or putting in for the zoning changes. And then, as Dana had mentioned, down Station Hill, is it, I believe, that they had their, they went in front of Thompson Station Planning Board and had, I believe they were T2 lots, zoning lots. And I think they got D3 lots, maybe, rezoned to D2 or D3. So they're also, so now it's already started. So as Dana said, there's going to be hundreds of homes there, double of what could have been there. So I'll for myself, and I believe some of the others, is, we know there's development going on. It's going to happen. It's we can't prevent people from developing their land. But I think what I'm asking is just let's preserve it. Let's say let's keep the zoning as is. If it is annexed over to Thompson Station, how can we keep the zoning as is? Is that possible? I don't know. If so, how do we go about doing that? So again, development's going to happen. In the meeting I went to with Franklin here a couple weeks back with the planning board, one of their comments was, well, we're not here. We can't stop people from developing their land. Well, that's not what we're asking. We're asking, let's stop them from rezoning it to making the development double or triple of what could be there. That's what I'm asking. And I think that's what some of us are asking here, is how do we stop the overdensity, the rezoning of the lands? So thank you very much. Have a great night.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Andrew Keenan of 1539 West Harpeth Road. A lot of the people have already addressed some of the concerns I have as well, so I'll try not to go over those and duplicate those. One common theme that should be pointed out here is I have yet to hear anybody say that they want to be in the Thompson Station urban growth boundary. It's falling on deaf ears to Thompson Station, but I guess the almighty dollar will prevail in their eyes if they have their way. I guess the first thing we need to start with is their little West Harpeth Road is kind of got a couple of 90-degree curves. I've seen multiple wrecks at night where cars go off the road. Signs don't get replaced. They run into telephone poles. And I'm sure it's just a matter of time before somebody's more seriously injured because of that. Neither here nor there. That's something minor that may be fixed. Probably won't be because infrastructure is not really a focus of what happens. The other problem we have is a CSX railroad down there that has an ungated, unlit, and unguarded crossing. Meaning when you go to it, if a train's coming through, the only thing that's going to stop you and that train from hitting is your eyes and the train horn. There's no flashing lights, no ringing bells, no gate, nothing like that. Luckily, that is down past most of where us are speaking from and where we live. But as A1 continues to develop the area and some of the land Thompson Station has already gotten in there on Sedbury Road is across this railroad crossing, I imagine down the road that we'll have to reach out to CSX and get this approved. Who knows if that'll happen or not. Hopefully it will happen before something bad happens. One big problem we have in this county is the flooding of the Harpeth River. It runs right through the heart of the county. We see it every spring, if not multiple times a year. The river gets up, downtown floods, and causes much damage. I know just in the last 12 years, we had the big 100-year flood. They seem to be getting more and more common. Luckily, where we are, the West Harpeth doesn't seem to flood like that yet. It flows off better. But look down the river. The West Harpeth meets up with the Harpeth. Once we start taking all this green area away that we've been gifted with, start building streets, houses, driveways, and don't let those houses and areas have any yards other than the little bitty square you push mow in 2 minutes, all that water is going to go straight into the sewer system, straight into the river, and cause the flooding to become even worse in downtown Franklin. The more flooding we have down there, the less desirable this area is going to be in. The other common theme seems to be that we don't want to be in the urban growth boundary period. We like being in unincorporated Williamson County. We all picked where we moved for a reason. We probably didn't just happen to show up one day and somebody gave us a letter and said, this is where you're going to live, enjoy. We all picked this area because we liked it. We don't want the city services. We don't want the crowding. We don't want the complications, the taxes. We want to be left alone. We like our quiet green space. The problem with Thompson Station coming into this is if you look at their track record, it speaks very clearly. They don't come in, despite what they tell you, and keep the rural character of the town. I have yet to see any development in the last several years done by Thompson Station that's remotely what I would call rural, let alone not very crowded neighborhoods with no yards to play in. I don't know where my little big baby back there would go play in a yard if we wanted her to play somewhere. There's a reason we chose the area we did so that we can have a place for her to get outside and be a kid instead of having the common problem where they're attached to a TV, electronics all the time. Another issue that comes in here is it's not the residents of the area speaking out to try to get changed over from Franklin to Thompson Station. It's A1 builders. They want to come in and be in this urban growth boundary because, as was said earlier, once they're in that, they're a prime candidate for annexation. As soon as this is approved, hopefully it's not, but if this does get approved, unfortunately, the next step, Thompson Station is going to annex them. They've annexed a lot of the acreage around us. The next step when they do the annexation is to come in, change the zoning, build dense developments, and provide them sewer with their limited sewer capacity, which I understand is still a couple of years out before it's finished and operational at this point. And that's still a big if, is my understanding. I'm not too involved with the project, so don't hold me to it on that one. The other kind of issue we have is if we are going to be put into the urban growth boundary, we'd like to remain in Franklin. Franklin at least has a little bit of track record of preserving green areas, keeping the beauty of this county in here. Many of the people moving to this county, which is one of the fastest growing areas and most sought after areas in the entire country, are moving here because of the rolling green pastures, the forested land, the wonderful schools, the lack of traffic, the lack of crime, the lack of congestion and craziness. I can't say that I'm a local. I did look up and marry a local up here, but I moved here to escape every one of these problems I just listed in an area that my family moved to about 30 or 40 years ago that had the same exact issue. They came in, it was a very rural area. It quickly developed into metro Atlanta. Along with the development came congestion, traffic, poor performing schools, congestion, higher taxes, less quality of services, less quality of life, and property values that I won't say declined, but the houses there are worth what they were worth 30 years ago. in real dollars, not just nominal dollars. I urge you to please reconsider trying to force us into the urban growth boundary. And I guess if worst comes to worst, if we have to pick the lesser of two evils, I hope that Franklin can maintain the area they've got around us as an urban growth boundary and keep us in the future Franklin growth plans. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Weber, and I'm on a different part of the county here. I'm on the east side. We're already inundated, like a lot of you, what you're talking about on the west, what you're hoping stops in your area has already happened in ours. So I really appreciate, what they've done with the county on this 2040 plan, because they are trying to make each municipality fiscally responsible to their taxpayers. And I appreciate that. And this process is really important for all of us that live here. For years, I've been in a group called Keep Williamson County Livable, and we have worked really hard to try to do that by working with each municipality with their land use planning and their regulatory tools for development, so that we can control some of this growth and maybe make things less expensive for us, because the county right now is going to end up being in $1 billion of debt within a matter of 15 years. And part of the reason is, like what you said, is that one area, Thompson Station, doesn't have any financial responsibility for those things as far as school and police and fire and all that. It goes on to the county. So that's one other thing. But being part of this group, we have even engaged in the county, or the state, to try to help with this annexation law so that the municipality just can't grab that county land. But it doesn't seem to get out of the committee meetings to be able to get to the floor for vote. So this process is what is going to make each municipality, this process of getting an interlocal agreement, get them responsible. So my basic thing was to also ask the county about what you all have said about the zoning. I went to Franklin a week ago and saw several of you there, and I asked them to consider a transitional zoning towards the borders of our county to help protect that character and the rural feel, so that when we leave a city and we go to the county. So make it a gradual density, like was said, MGA, which is either 1 home to 1 acre or 1 home to 2 acres. And that would give us the beauty and help preserve and change their zoning so that you don't have mixed use developments and you don't have the so-called quote unquote conservation subdivisions, because all you see is rooftops. So I've asked for that at one location, and I'm asking now with Mike to possibly take that suggestion to the governing committee here over this and tell them that that is a big thing that the citizens are looking for, because we don't want little mini West Havens on our borders anymore. We want to be able to transition, and most density of the city should be in the city. And even 65 South, as far as being 65 being the location where to push the growth, the only infrastructure that's there is the roads. The city itself of Franklin is having sewer problems, and they have to find more sewer capacity. With their build-out numbers now, just in Franklin, and I haven't done Thompson Station and all that, but the build-out numbers now, which has been approved and not yet built, already takes the expansion of the sewer at Franklin to 85%. Okay? So the only other thing I have to say as far as the east is the new villages that are planned. I understand that we have to channel our growth because we know it's going to come. But in Arrington, especially on 96 right now, even though it's being expanded, since it's just going to increase more traffic, because we went through, and I think the stats that we have from, I'm trying to get it up here, from the Williamson County Emergency Management Team, just between Arno Road and Cox Road, we've had a total of 116 accidents in 14 months, where we do know that there's one fatality. They don't report the fatalities. We know that there has been one. They do report injuries. So we got 104 from the Williamson County Emergency Management, and then Sheriff's Department reported 12. So I guess on the east there, I'd like to have that as far as Arrington being considered as an actual village to be reviewed again, because I know each group is going to have their own special area plan, but that doesn't eliminate the density. And more density in an area, I mean, even though the citizens are going to come together and make that plan, we need to try to guard against making it maybe a community for them, but not a dense one. And I think that's what everybody in the county is looking for. Is we're done with the density. We want to see our rural character. So thanks again. Yeah, I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks.
I haven't signed my name just yet, but I will here in a minute. My name is Mark Waney. I'm also from Indian Meadow Subdivision off of West Harpeth. And as to summarize, as you can kind of understand, us that are in the county are very unhappy with the urban growth land grab that Thompson Station has been going through. When we moved there 26, 27 years ago, we moved there because it was a minimum 1 acre per lot, one house per 1 acre lot. That's what we grew up and our kids grew up in. That's what we expected living in the county. We didn't expect all of a sudden becoming a part of a city, Thompson Station, or even Franklin for that matter. Although if we had the alternative of Franklin versus Thompson Station, we'll take Franklin in a heartbeat. The unfettered urban growth boundary land grab that Thompson Station is ridiculous, and Thompson Station is not listening to those of us that it directly impacts. They limit us at one city council meeting to be able to speak. Then they voted at that same meeting that they would allow us 1 minute of time to speak. 1 minute, because we weren't residents of Thompson Station, and yet they're grabbing our properties. This is ridiculous. The land right behind my house, which is on Columbia Avenue, which has 64 acres, has now been zoned T2, which has now got 90 houses that they're going to be putting on that property. Oh, and by the way, Thompson Station's sewer system is not capable of handling any of the new developments that they're putting in. And how are they dealing with that? Through drip fields, septic drip fields. Toll gate literally goes under the West Harpeth River to a septic drip field right next to our subdivision. And on those hot, humid days, what do we smell? I won't let you know, but they're fixing to do the exact same thing behind me, and they're going to get sewer. I don't believe it. I don't think Thompson Station has the brains to do that. Sorry. Seems as though the developers, A1 in particular, has all the pull in the county. When they don't get their way, they threaten lawsuits, of which what they did, and that's how they got the property on Thompson State or on Columbia Pike. We don't have that right. Well, I guess we could, but I don't have the money to sue Thompson Station. I don't know about the rest of you all here. So we're asking that in the county as a minimum that there be 1 acre lots in the current county minimum. 5 acres is fine. I don't care. I'm not against development, but if you've got property, you should be able to develop it to the similar character of the county, not a toll gate. Anyways, that's all I really have to say, and thank you very much.
Don Garcia. I'm at 4103 Jensen Lane, part of the Harpeth Woods neighborhood. And I've sat here. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I've sat here and listened to all of my neighbors speak, listened to all of your concerns, and I hear a theme that nobody's quite reaching. What about our kids? I've got an 8th grader at Thompson Station Middle. I've got a 6th grader at Thompson Station Middle, and I've got a preschooler that will be at Bethesda next year. And I've heard people hinting around at it, but what about our schools? Williamson County schools, we keep building schools. Every time a school pops up, it is full. I tried to move my elementary school student from Bethesda to Thompson Station Middle because his older brother was there. And as all of you who are parents or have been parents and have one kid here, one kid here, one kid here, it's a lot of driving. And in Williamson County with our traffic, it's a lot of driving. I was trying to minimize that. When I approached the school, they said, don't even bother to make a rezoning request at Thompson Station Elementary. We are 80 students over capacity. 80 students in the middle school. They were having class in the hallways. They were in the middle school cafeteria. This was 2 years after it was built. 2 years after it was open, it was over capacity. So every time we talk about infrastructure, we talk about adding, 4 houses per acre where we previously were zoned for 1 house per acre. That's more kids. And I want to point everybody to the law, okay? And I'm a lawyer, so of course I'm going to go there. Purpose of the chapter governing urban growth plans, what we're doing here today. Number 4, stabilize the county's education funding base and establish an incentive for each county legislative body to be more interested in education matters. And right now, all I see Thompson Station doing, because that's who wants us, is focusing on the funding base, our property taxes. But who's going to build the schools and where are we going to build them? Right? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jane Sadler. I wasn't aware that we could speak tonight, so I'll sign in once I get done with my speech. I live in Gander Branch Road, which is a tributary of Harpeth-Paytonville, which is one of the roads that is being partially grabbed by Thompson Station in their urban growth boundary. And I'm going to say grabbed because what Thompson Station has done, and they are ignoring the citizens, we've all spoken, we've all told them we don't want to be a part of their urban growth boundary. But what they are doing is going in and looking for the land that's not developed, and they're allowing the developers to come in and pick higher densities. So we have more houses. As I spoke at one of the last urban growth boundary meetings in Thompson Station, I requested that they withdraw anything on the eastern side of Lewisburg Pike, which would include Harpeth Woods, Bethesda Road, Harpeth-Paytonville Road, pull any of that away from their urban growth boundary and focus on what they have currently in their city. Just in this city alone, Thompson Station, they have over 2,000 homes approved, along with multiple commercial and then even a hotel. So they have quite a bit of development that they have in the books that they have given no thought to infrastructure, and infrastructure has to be treated as a health and safety issue. If you need police, if you need fire, if you need medical, every second counts. And as long as we continue to allow Thompson Station to do their land grab, which they are doing, and expand and given no thought to any of the infrastructure, any of the health and safety issues, you put all of us at risk. We need to treat urban growth and infrastructure one and the same. We need to make sure that we are taking care of the citizens who have been here. And I will tell you right now, I'm a native of Williamson County. I graduated from Page High School in 1984. I started driving Highway 96 to Murfreesboro to go to NTSU in 1984. And at that time, everybody said, we're widening 96. We're going to widen 96. We've got to do a feasibility. We've got to do a study. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. They started widening Highway 96 2 years ago. 2 years ago. As long as we continue to expand and expand, we're going to have issues with infrastructure, and the cost is driven up. Spoke to a gentleman concerning the widening of duplex. When Spring Hill started increasing all of their infrastructure, started increasing their boundaries and allowing their subdivisions, they started looking at duplex then. Had they done duplex at that time, they would have had 20 right-of-ways. When they just completed duplex a year and a half ago, 200 right-of-ways. 200 right-of-ways are money. That's money coming out of our pockets. That's our tax dollars. So we have to pay attention to those things as well. So the eastern side of Lewisburg Pike, leave us out of the urban growth boundary, keep us in Williamson County, keep us with the rural character that we have, that Thompson Station continues to say they want to do, and they've done nothing about it. We just ran into the issue with the Ferrari property in the Bethesda area. They got tired, the developers got tired of waiting on Williamson County to make a decision of what was going to happen with urban growth. So they approached Thompson Station and said, we want to be annexed. And because they are the one owner of that property, they were allowed to vote. They voted yes, and now they'll be a part of Thompson Station, and they will use the higher density, so there'll be more homes on those lots than what would have been had they stayed county. So please, please take our concerns into consideration. If we need to reach out to the members of the committee that are handling this, I will gladly stand before them again. We need to stop the sprawl. We need to curtail Thompson Station's land grab. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak this evening? Okay, so let me just start by thanking you all very much for not only coming this evening, but for sharing your thoughts and your concerns. We really do appreciate that, and we've taken notes, and we're going to, go through those, and we're going to focus, as I said at the beginning, at this stage, really on the county's portion of this, on our planned growth areas and our rural areas, because that's what we're charged with doing right now. But I appreciate all the comments. You obviously have a lot of passion for your communities, as you should. We live in a fantastic area. I heard a lot of talk about growth and ramifications of growth and infrastructure and not wanting to become Atlanta. And those are exactly the things that we took into account when we did our comprehensive plan for the unincorporated county, and which resulted in us doing what we could. And it wasn't an easy decision, but we took some policy actions to preserve rural character because it's important to do so. It's a complex issue. Because there's so much growth, we focus on what we can control, for the unincorporated county. There will be more opportunities for you all to address the specific issue that you've talked about with Thompson Station. The coordinating committee will be evaluating this. They're going to hold 2 public hearings. And the reason they're holding public hearings is the reason that we're holding public hearings tonight, because we want to hear what people have to say about what we're going to be in charge with. in charge of, which tonight it's the PGAs in rural areas, but the coordinating committee is going to be in charge of putting this whole package together. And so that is an appropriate time to speak regarding the issue. Most of the comments obviously related to the issues with not wanting to be in a boundary or concerned about the boundaries. There were a couple things that were related to Williamson County specifically. Kathy, you mentioned the Arrington Special Area Plan, which we'll be doing soon. I will point out that we are going to go forward with that process of developing a special area plan and converting Arrington from a hamlet to a village, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the same village that we're seeing in Triune or Leapers Fork. Every community is different. What we're going to do is listen to the community and come up with a plan that kind of marries what people want to see with what we think is good planning and put that forward. In terms of the comments tonight, we're gonna type up the notes. We're going to put the video on our website. We're gonna come back and see if we want to make any changes to what we're doing as a result of the hearing. And I'm sure that that the folks in Thompson Station will have access to this public hearing, and hopefully they'll view the comments that you've given. Any questions about particularly the process going forward and opportunities to be heard? Yes, sir. The coordinating committee will be holding 2 public hearings. We think that those will likely take place in October. We don't know that for sure at this point, but that's sort of what the process is designed to be. You'll be able to find out about those on the county's website, which is williamsoncounty-tn.gov or org. Gov. If you go to the planning department page, there's a sub page. You can find that is growth plan update, and so you'll be able to find documents that have, videos from meetings that have already occurred, public hearings, and that's where we will advertise the public hearings for the coordinating committee, and it'll be in the paper too. But keep your eyes out for those. You can always reach out to me. We think those will be in October, and the coordinating committee is going to want to hear what you have to say. Yes, sir. One more time. Okay. Yeah, the question was, do we have a date set for the special area plan out in Arrington? We don't have a date set yet, but we're going to be within the next, I'd say, 2 weeks, sending a postcard to everyone who owns property within that hamlet area. And I think I've talked to you on the phone. And so you'll get a postcard, and that postcard will give you information about the area plan process that's going to be taking place, and even solicit interest in participating on an advisory committee. So stay tuned for that, and then we'll use that to start generating a database of email addresses that we'll utilize when we're getting the word out about future meetings and that sort of thing. Over here.
Mike, the urban growth boundaries, are those the proposed areas, are those pretty much set now where the cities are proposing to grow to, and has there been a consensus of agreement with those municipalities?
So the question from Commissioner Lawrence was the growth boundaries that you saw on the map, are those pretty much set at this point? I would say that is our starting point, that each of the 7 jurisdictions took a look at growth based on the things that I talked about and have proposed, just like we're proposing the planned growth areas and rural areas, what they want that to be. And then the process will kind of dictate whether those get modified or not going forward.
And if they do get somewhat close to that, do we know how much area that the county is going to be taking in, unincorporated county?
The follow-up question was, do we know how much land area is proposed to be added to the UGBs? And not at this point. I'm sure that's a calculation that could be done. Some cities have taken some away and proposed to add some. Franklin and Fairview stand out as being some that have given up area that they don't think they can serve. Not just the West Harpeth area, but an area immediately west of town, and then picked up other areas that strategically they feel like makes more sense. So we don't now. I'd say overall, the boundaries are larger as you would expect them to be after 20 years, but I think that for the most part, they're not as large as what some people might have thought they would have been, with some exceptions.
And then the question I have was, the August 29th meeting, the committee, right? Is that just a regular meeting, like we could attend and listen to what the advisory committee is doing, or?
So this question was that there is a meeting of the coordinating committee that's scheduled on August the 29th. And the question was, is that a meeting that people can attend and hear what's going on? So the purpose of that meeting on the 29th of August is for each of the 7 jurisdictions to give a presentation to the coordinating committee on what they're proposing. Okay. Yes, those are meetings that are open to the public. There will be a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting. Now, this is just me, but the coordinating committee at this point will just be hearing the presentations, and that may be knowing that they're going to be having public hearings later on the information that they will just be about to hear on August 29th. I'm not sure that is, you're welcome to come and say anything you want. That's what it's designed for. It's going to be at the Enrichment Center next to the library at 9 o'clock on the 29th. Yeah. Yes.
Would you clarify for some of the folks in Harpeth Woods that even if they're in the urban growth boundary for Thompson Station, the address will not change? They will still be a Franklin, Tennessee address. I don't know if people can hear me or not.
Yeah, but it's a point that should be made because it came up, and I appreciate that, Commissioner Hester. And yes, being added to a growth boundary doesn't have any effect on whether your postal code is going to be Franklin or Thompson Station or something else. Yes, Ms. Smith, Commissioner.
I was just wondering, the coordinating committee, is that completely known who on that committee? Is there a way to contact them to kind of like reach out to them directly and share their concerns? Is there a way to do that?
There is a way to do that. That is a committee that was formed back in June. I'm not sure if we have a membership that's posted on the website, but we could put one up.
I was just saying, if people can't make it to the public hearing, they can at least, share their concerns with the members of that committee to get some talking points.
Mhm.
Their process might be a
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Can you clarify what you were talking about with 1A about the annexation laws changing?
Repeat the question. Oh,
Yeah, can you go back to the 1A?
let's see here.
Pretty specific.
Let's see here. Okay. 1B. Yeah, so annexation law, and we do have Christy Ransom here, who is one of the county attorneys that can jump up here and do this a lot better. Generally speaking, annexation law is cumbersome and complex, and sometimes unnecessarily so. And because of that, I think there's a hindrance sometimes of what can and what cannot be done. And so we were just thinking that if there was a concerted effort among all jurisdictions on what that should look like, then that would maybe hold some political weight. That's all.
Would this interlocal agreement then be something that would just be for Williamson County and not for all the counties of the state?
The interlocal agreements, and there are 3 of them that are going forward concurrently with the development of this plan. One agreement addressing 3 different items. 1, municipalities agree not to annex outside the growth boundaries. 2, that we revisit the plan at least every 5 years. And 3, that a multi-jurisdictional entity kind of survive the plan and continue to meet on a regular basis to talk about important regional issues. Those are going to be memorialized in a interlocal agreement that will be in place when this plan gets adopted in whatever final form it gets adopted. There will also be opportunities for other interlocal agreements as we go forward, things like how land should be zoned, whether to use those systems. So that's a long way of answering your question, that they'll be specific to Williamson County and wouldn't impact other counties in the state.
So then the state law would not trump what we're doing for our county?
I think as long as what we're doing isn't contrary to state law, it would be in addition to, but something that would supplement that and be, help us be as sound in our growth management as we possibly can.
So as it is right now, if
Uh-huh.
a resident doesn't want to be annexed, or actually the only way they can be annexed right now is if they request annexation. A property owner cannot be annexed unless they request annexation. That's the way the state law is now. And then, but this would make it so that the cities can't go outside that UGB even if somebody does request. It would do that.
Yeah. It would be that even though the cities can annex outside of the growth boundary, and they can now under certain circumstances, they will be agreeing not to. That's the idea that behind that one. And so far, we've had the jurisdiction say, yeah, that makes sense, and that's going to be memorialized, we hope, into a interlocal agreement that would have some teeth and some ramifications. Yeah.
Clarify, for 1B, you're saying that whatever the annexation authority that you're requesting is not going to supersede the 2 forms of annexation that currently occur under state law. It would just be supplement that.
So the idea would be that maybe the state could carve out an exception for Williamson County that would, and we don't know what that might look like, but if we identify as a community that, hey, this aspect prevents us from doing planning as well as we should, then we could lobby for a portion of that to change just for Williamson County. Now, I don't know if they would go for that, but we do feel like we'd have a better chance if all 7 jurisdictions are singing off the same sheet of music.
So to summarize, what you're talking about is changing the state annexation laws in Williamson County specifically to make it easier for the 7 entities to annex property within the area.
Well, so not necessarily. I mean, I don't know what that would look like. So we want to make sure that we as the county want to make sure that the municipalities aren't annexing outside of the growth boundary, like a lot of them have been doing. And within the growth boundary, you know, I think the cities would say, yeah, some of the annexation law is pretty difficult. Now, I don't know that it would be. I don't know what form that would look like, and this hasn't gone very far in terms of. There's not been any discussion about how that might be drafted. It's just an idea that, hey, if there's an aspect of this that we think that the whole community could benefit from, we might have some lobbying power. So again, it's just an idea, and I think that there will be multiple times to revisit this, or maybe even seek additional clarification. Okay.
So as far as UGB goes, so there's different areas that are proposed. Is it everything has to go? Is it all either they take all go at once, or like our area down there, West Hartford area seems to be where there's the most concern and disapproval. So would it be where hey, okay, they'll take these sections and not the West Hartford area, or is it they just accept everything?
So there are still several opportunities for modifying what has been presented thus far. So Thompson Station and the other municipalities are going to be proposing something to the coordinating committee. And whether they propose exactly what you've seen or if they make some modifications, I don't know at this point, but they'll be proposing something to the coordinating committee. The coordinating committee will discuss that amongst themselves and come up with what they want to hold a public hearing about. And then, and right, I understand, yeah. So the coordinating committee, I'm not saying they will, but the coordinating committee could hear you all and say, hey, I think we should make some changes to this section or to Harpeth Woods and to this. Again, that's speculative. I don't know what that's going to be, but they certainly could respond to the public comment by making those changes. And then remember, the coordinating committee is going to be proposing a plan after the public hearing and after they make whatever changes they think are necessary. They'll be sending out a plan for the jurisdictions to vote on.
So, from my understanding, who has the authority over making these urban boundaries? Is it the individual cities? They can say, I want all the way out to Fairview like Thompson Station. Or is it the county that says, cannot go that far, you have to stay within certain boundaries? Who has that authority?
So the question was, who has the authority to ultimately decide the boundaries, the urban growth boundaries? And ultimately, it's a combination of the coordinating committee, which is going to send a plan to the jurisdictions, and the jurisdictions to approve it. So you cannot change the growth plan unless all 7 legislative bodies approve it.
So again, that means that if Thompson Station wants a bigger growth boundary and this committee just rubber stamps it, they get, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, not necessarily, because each of the 7 jurisdictions, so Thompson Station, Franklin, Brentwood, the county would all have to approve the plan for the plan to pass and go forward to the state for ratification.
It has to go to the state. The state then has to say it's okay.
Ultimately, it goes to the state for their ratification of the plan that's been adopted by.
They could say no to whatever you propose.
I suppose they could, but I think they'd be looking at, have the jurisdictions all agreed? Did they,
But the jurisdictions aren't the people. That's what.
Understood.
That's not the case. As we're finding in Thompson Station, we have 0 voice in Thompson Station's urban growth boundary. That's our concern. And I think that that's the same with the rest of the residents in the area of Williamson County that's impacted by Thompson Station's UGB.
I get it.
That's our concern.
Yeah, I get it. And I don't know what Thompson Station is going to be proposing on the 29th, but
I can tell you it's bigger than what it is now.
yeah. and then the coordinating committee is going to get a hold of it and talk about it and hold public hearings. And that's all I can tell you as a county person at this point. And I wish I could tell you more, but those will be your opportunities to again voice your concerns.
So again, when it comes to annexation, so in my neighborhood of West Hartford, Indian Meadows subdivision, since I'm in the UGB currently, my lot could be in Thompson Station, and all the other residents could be outside of Thompson Station in Williamson County. That's the way I'm to understand it, because if I, as a owner of that property, go and petition, they can say yes. That seems archaic. That's how you end up getting a mess. In my hometown where I grew up, I will give you an example. We were in the city, the house behind me was in the county, the house across the street was in the city. When the fits caught fire, the county and the city fire department spotted who was to put it out.
Right.
And that's what we're concerned about on top of this.
Yeah, I get it. As far as the patchwork quilt. Yeah, I get it.
State legislator would that wouldn't be heard this year.
No, correct. The plan won't even be adopted until, probably early in 2024. And then there would need to be, if this strategy survives and has some legs, then the jurisdictions would try to figure out. So I would think it's probably not even going to be next legislative session. Miss Judy.
I just want to, I've been on the UGB committee we've been going on with this for 2 years. As a Alabama country gal. And I tried to explain to these cities that we don't want to be in the city. And they really have a hard time with grasping that, sorry, horse. But Thompson Station originally was wanting a lot more property, but they have reduced it down. And that was through an effort of all the residents doing petitions and everything, so they reduced it down. But I do want to encourage all of y'all to come to these meetings, especially ones in October, and voice your concerns, because we as commissioners will be listening, because we vote also. And I understand, I hear all of y'all's concerns, and I understand them completely. So please come to these meetings. They're gonna have to listen, because, and Spring Hill hadn't even come up. I've got so many residents that Spring Hill's wanting to take over that do not want to be in Spring Hill. I drove down Owl Hollow Road. This is an example. And they want this, it is one of the few areas left in this county that's like old Williamson County. If Spring Hill takes them over, it'll be gone. So, I'm telling them and everybody, please come to these meetings. The county does care, and the county will listen to what you say, and I will do anything I can, personally. Doesn't mean I'll win, but I'll try my best.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying those of us that are in the Hartford Woods neighborhood that are uniquely, that we are positioned in Franklin, that if Franklin were to object and say, we don't agree with Thompson Station, that they could do that? Franklin could say, we're not in agreement to let you have that section?
Every jurisdiction is going to have to vote, and if one jurisdiction votes against the plan, then it doesn't pass, and you go back to the drawing board, and there's some different things that would happen if that were to take place. But yeah.
For those of us specifically that are in the UGB, that are in Franklin, that are looking at being annexed or part of the UGB for Thompson Station, Franklin could step in. And so we need to be petitioning not only Thompson Station, we need to be talking to Franklin saying, stand up for us, we already are a part of Franklin, don't let us go.
They did that at the meeting, and they deferred the meeting till the 22nd, so I encourage you to be there at August 22nd.
But you're saying that meeting was with Thompson Station, right?
No.
Okay.
It was a public hearing, and they deferred, everything until August 22nd.
But
So-
Franklin is not asking for our permits. They're not asking for it.
But Franklin does still have that currently has some growth boundary that they are proposing to relinquish and Thompson Station proposing to accept. And so, people should attend whatever public hearings are available to them. So if Franklin's having another public hearing, attend,
Fairview and Franklin are the ones that are basically giving up some stuff. Most of the others are growing. Franklin could object and say, we're not going to let you have Harpeth Woods, so this piece and that piece. We're going to keep these pieces and.
What's the level plan for it? They deferred the vote last week, maybe the 22nd.
They have to be done by the 29th, so they have to finalize it on the 22nd, what they're gonna do.
what they're going to propose to the coordinating committee. Yeah. Commissioner Smith?
Compensation, ability to actually even support the infrastructure. I think someone mentioned there's already like 2,000 homes planned, there's some rural areas are developed. We're not even prepared to take on that with the current infrastructure in our sewer. Is there no sort of evaluation or any sort of criteria to say, hold on a second, before we even allow you to discuss expanding, let's look and see what you've done so far and how prepared you are to even continue. If we're doing it every 5 years, I would almost say, compensation, I would have to try again in 5 years before they try to take on the land.
So Commissioner Smith's question is a good one, and it is, what analysis or what do they have to demonstrate in terms of their ability to serve it at this point? And the statute does require that they do population projections and that they look at infrastructure services and that sort of thing. So they have done that. They've prepared a report that would be public record. I think your point about the 5 years is a good one. That they, as someone else had mentioned, they initially proposed a much bigger area extending east of Lewisburg Pike, and after some concern expressed, they brought that back and said, "Hey, we'll look at that down the pike." And so that could be something that they do. We'll see. All right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. Stuff. Sure. Sure. Yeah.
And there's no other entrance. It's an old school road. That's it.
Right. Right.
Mike, one last thing, I know that I'm in the urban growth boundary of the city of Franklin, but our development has already been built to county standards. So chances are, they're not going to come and annex us, but that's what I'm concerned about now. They probably won't, and the boundaries don't reflect that we're in the county right now. To keep the boundaries clean, they keep it because we've been in their urban growth boundary for all these years. So I'm wondering if with this interlocal agreement that it would give them the right to say, yes, you're part of us and you gotta get on sewer.
There wouldn't be an interlocal.
Now, Maze Creek Basin's different, it's a different ballgame, and I understand that, but their capacity is already at a problem right now, but.
Yeah, there wouldn't be an interlocal agreement that does that.
That would allow them just to take us?
That wouldn't be something that it would be done in an interlocal agreement if anything is done to you make a good point that Franklin's unlikely to even want to annex an existing subdivision. Thompson Station's probably unlikely to want to annex an existing subdivision because there's not much in it for them. They would more likely annex undeveloped property in the vicinity.
I just want to say thank you for letting us do a Q&A. Thompson Station has never allowed any questions, ever.
Okay.
So this is our first time actually being able to ask questions, so we really do appreciate it.
Good.
Right now, they've been not allowed us to speak. They tell us at the very beginning, there are no Q&As allowed. So we're like, okay, then they turn off all the microphones. So we
Right.
have two microphones.
So those, they changed, the last one, we used to have a movement there, they understood that some of the traffic issues were a concern.
Yeah.
The new one, they could care less.
Well, I would encourage you to attend the coordinating committee public hearings. If there's still a Franklin public hearing that you feel like you can make some comments, that's probably a good idea too. Again, I really appreciate y'all turning out. You bet. Okay. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey.